Set in the summer of 1966, Mage's newest novel, Iwakura Aria, brings you to the Iwakura Manor as protagonist Ichiko Kitagawa, a curious young girl whose employment as a maid for the family brings her as much joy as it does misfortune. Touching on the mysteries surrounding the Iwakura family while balancing the complexities of human relationships as things go from lighthearted to suspenseful, Iwakura Aria is a visual novel that hopefully is on your radar, because it wasn't on mine until PQube emailed me. Not only is it refreshing to have a new IP from Mages, but more importantly it's Yuri. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bruce, and today we're gonna figure out whether you should pick up Iwakura Aria. Ichiko Kitagawa has been living in orphanages and foster homes all her life, barely getting by through selling various commodities, including her own art, which despite her skill, she had little success in selling. On one fateful day in the summer of 1966, a man by the name of Amane Iwakura comes by, and to Ichiko's surprise, not only buys her artwork for his daughter, but also offers Ichiko a job as a live-in maid at his mansion. With nothing to lose and everything to gain, Ichiko jumps at the offer, albeit nervously, and quickly gets acquainted with her new workplace. Included in her work is tending to Amane's daughter, Aria, who Ichiko finds to be indescribably beautiful in their first encounter. While initially Aria keeps Ichiko at a distance by very rarely interacting with her, once she finds out that Ichiko is an artist, she begins to open up to her, and thus begins Ichiko and Aria's intricate, delicate relationship. Unfortunately, this does turn out to be more than Ichiko bargained for when she slowly discovers secrets hidden in the mansion, hinting that the Iwakura family is not the straight-laced, respected family she thought it was. Truthfully, when I started Iwakura Aria, I wasn't really expecting much. New visual novel IPs are very hit or miss, and specifically when it comes to VN's Mages has produced, all I have to base them on is the science adventure series, 2 disappointing anime visual novels, and Since Memories. So taking the outlier that is the science adventure series out of the equation, their recent track record is iffy at best. With that being said, I'm glad to say that Iwakura Aria is definitely worth your time. I want to start by talking about Iwakura Aria's strongest suit, its cast of characters. Given that almost the entire story takes place within the Iwakura mansion, the setting is very confined, so we are stuck with a limited cast of characters. But this can be a good thing, and in Iwakura Aria's case it is, because we see satisfying and conclusive character development by the time the plot is winding down. Ichiko Kitagawa is an insecure individual, as we learn during her tenure at the Iwakura mansion, lacking the confidence that she'll ever be a proper maid for the household. She is also quite curious-minded, leading her to snoop around the mansion and uncover secrets she isn't supposed to know. Both of these traits make her a flawed but interesting protagonist, and are things she must overcome as the story progresses. Aria Iwakura, the seemingly forlorn Ojo-sama of the household, often keeps things to herself even after befriending Ichiko, and she's rather frail, almost never leaving the mansion besides for short walks. Being the titular character, her relationship with Ichiko is the main focus of the visual novel, which slowly gets more complex as Ichiko's infatuation with her grows. She does occasionally show a playful side, and her emotional struggles are a highlight of Iwakura Aria. I mean, obviously. Amane is the head of the Iwakura household, Aria's father and primary caregiver until he hires Ichiko. While very welcoming and gentle with Ichiko, he mainly keeps his life outside the house a secret from her, besides the various parties that he'll host at the manor. Aria trusts him completely, but Ichiko doubts their relationship as she further entrenches herself in her curiosities. There are a couple of side characters that are important to the narrative too, including Sui, the Iwakura household chef, and Ichiko's emotional support, and various other workers Amane has employed at the mansion, such as his secretary and the gardener. Iwakura Aria makes great use of its characters for its plot, and at no point did I feel any were unnecessary or overstaying their welcome. Iwakura Aria is a visual novel that focuses on 2 things: mystery, and character relationships. One thing I love about the plot of Iwakura Aria is that the story beats keep a consistent level of intrigue throughout the entire read. As mysteries and secrets become unraveled and brought out into the open, new ones are found, not ever giving Ichiko a modicum of rest from suspenseful moments. At the same time, however, we are given slice-of-life moments that give Ichiko and the reader brief relief and a reminder of normality. The constant wonder of where this story is going had me hooked. There are many interludes between scenes that show events transpiring that Ichiko isn't privy to, that leaves information for the reader to think about. Furthermore, with the ambiguity of some information, it leaves you to wonder if some plot points are supernatural or grounded in reality. If you're interested in stories focusing on mystery and discovery, I think you'll certainly like Iwakura Aria. Its mystery aspects are deep enough to keep you on your toes, while also answering them at a satisfying pace. That leaves us with the other main focus of Iwakura Aria, its character relationships, which are also done quite well. The relationship between Ichiko and Aria is the star of the show, and depending on the choices you make, you can see how it evolves in the way that it does. Obsession and perception play a core part in how Ichiko's feelings develop for Aria, and due to Aria's growing emotional reliance on Ichiko, she occasionally takes advantage of that. Other relationships, such as Aria's with her father Amane, also run quite deeper than they seem at first. Even Ichiko's relationship with Sui is important because having an out-of-the-mansion, normal, relatable friend keeps Ichiko sane when she feels confusion and despair. I did mention this visual novel is Yuri at the start of this video, and yes it is. But while the main relationship between Ichiko and Aria is a core aspect of Iwakura Aria, it's more about the complexities and difficulties of their emotional relationship rather than the physical relationship between them. I might be biased because I've read like 50 Yuri manga this year, but believe me when I say that you don't need to like Yuri to like this visual novel. As you could probably tell, many themes are incorporated into the plot and character development, but one of the most important ones involves Ichiko's position as an artist. Throughout the story, she sketches various things that interest her as inspiration hits, and she is convinced by Aria to eventually do oil paintings as well. Her art represents her perception of the things around her, but as she learns of the Iwakura family secrets, these things she once thought she knew are now seen in a different light. Now, I've had a lot of good things to say about Iwakura Aria so far, but is it all candy and roses? No, it's not. My main disappointments come from the implementations of the choices and endings, but one thing I will say I have a gripe on is that given the revelations in the plot, I was kind of hoping for things to be a little more climactic. Things never go beyond a 6 or 7 in the intensity scale, when they certainly could have given the direction of the story. And whilst I can respect that it adheres to a more realistic narrative, I feel like it results in a lukewarm satisfaction that is followed by the endings, which I'll talk about now. The entire plot is told from the perspective of Ichiko many years in the future, going back to that summer of 1966. I think this is neat because it's a way to connect all the endings, good or bad, to the respective result in the future in a conclusive way that makes them canon. That being said, a majority of them are mediocre. There are 9 endings you can unlock during the main story, and one final ending you unlock after the true ending, which is a short after-story scene. Most of these endings are bad endings, and you'll know it's happening because the novel will hit you with, it was the summer of 1966. And you know you're fucked, and that would be fine. I've always said that well-made bad endings can benefit a narrative, but a lot of them here kinda just feel like bad endings to be bad endings. A few of them are interesting, but disappointingly enough, one choice where I really feel could have triggered a point of no return for Ichiko ended up resulting in a neutral ending. I'm not asking for crazy things to happen, I'm just insinuating it. There is an exploration map system used at various points of the story, that lets you look around the mansion's rooms. Whilst you can explore every room, the rooms with things of interest will be highlighted red, and you don't need to explore anything else unless you want the occasional short dialogue. That, in of itself, is cool. But they use this map one singular time for a choice that can affect the story, and I really feel they could have embraced that idea and used it more often. In fact, there are multiple times where you are given choices that are just locations, and whilst in the end how the choice is made is redundant, I feel it could have been more immersive using the map. Sure, some of these choices go between floors, but you have the UI right there. Just add arrows to it and give actual consequential exploration. This doesn't take away from my overall thoughts on the novel, but I get frustrated when I see mechanics that have the potential to be interesting end up bland and linear, but I digress. The true ending is a good conclusion to the plot and each character's development overall, and whilst I still feel it was anticlimactic in ways, it was still satisfying to read. Assuming you make your choices playing into Ichiko's character, you'll very likely reach the true ending without hassle. As for whether you should go back and read all the alternative endings, I'll leave that up to you. Some of them are worth it and all of them are short, so there's really no harm in doing so. Lastly, there's extra content in the form of short side stories you can unlock, and these are all pretty much worth it to read. Again, very short, so why not? Iwakura Aria might not be the most breathtaking journey or intricate mystery story you'll ever read, but the relationships between the characters and the well-paced narrative make it a great shorter read, being about 12 to 15 or so hours in length. And if all that's not enough to convince you, maybe the visuals will, because they are incredible. It's a breath of fresh air to not see the typical anime art style, even if the eyes remain ginormous, but Iwakura Aria, in particular, is an incredible looking game. The colors fit the themes and tone, the sprites and backgrounds are full of detail, and the different forms of presentation are engaging. It's neat to see Ichiko take out her sketchbook and actually draw what she's talking about, rather than just having to imagine it. We are talking about visual novels here, but it's important to remember that we're also talking about visual novels. And with the importance of Ichiko's art, it's really satisfying seeing that visual feedback. The game only has about 15 CGs, a couple with variations, which may not seem like a lot, but it's supplemented with illustrations in painterly style for important scenes, cut up into frames and sequentially fading in, almost like a comic book. These are usually in black and white, but occasionally use color, which adds lasting impact to the scene. I think this is exceptionally cool, and I would love to see more visual novels embrace these sort of stylistic choices. Abo Takeshi composed the soundtrack as per usual for Mage's titles, and as per usual, it's pretty good. I found no errors in the script, and the translation was done well, in mostly a literal way from what I could gather. If I had any other gripe, it's that during the map sections, you have to press a button on the keyboard to back out of it, which means I had to lean forward in my chair. That's almost like exercise, and I get plenty of that going to the freezer to get ice cream already. I managed to circumvent this problem by playing the rest of the game with a Guitar Hero controller. Modern problems require modern solutions. Iwakura Aria might be the most captivating visual novel Mages has released in recent times. With intriguing mystery, complex characters, and engaging presentation, it's a visual novel you won't want to stop reading. It's certainly not perfect. It's not a thriller that'll get your heart pumping, nor is it a thought-provoking, life-changing mystery. But if you want to sit back and relax, putting yourself in the shoes of a desperate poor girl who ends up in a mostly isolated mansion with secrets aplenty and some spicy yuri undertones, maybe you'll have a good time reading Iwakura Aria, because I certainly did. Thanks very much to those from PQube who reached out to me and gave me a free key. Thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.